Hello, everyone. This is Simon Jacobson. Another episode of Meaningful Live. Ongoing commentary, running commentary on world events. Talk about world events, man alive. I think we can all agree. I know we can all agree. Look how things have changed so quickly in just the last few weeks. If anyone were to ask you 3 weeks ago what was going to happen in the Middle East, Israel was buried in a quagmire in Gaza. Iran at a stalemate and a standoff with Israel. The volatile forces all at work. And now we turn the clock just a few weeks later. Look what's happened. Look at this turnaround. No one could have expected it. So the first lesson we need to learn is that surprises are the norm. It's not about predictions. You can have statisticians, political analysts, pundits, people who study the trends, and no one would have predicted these events. We're right now literally on the verge of total peace in the Middle East. It's not over. We understand there's still challenges, but the landscape has been changed. So that's a critical lesson. Number one, in humility. And number two, to keep our eyes open. There's a larger story at work here. There's a larger narrative. And though you may see certain things happening and may not understand them, they may even be tragic. And death, and we've seen that. But when you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't minimize the tragedy, but you realize there's a narrative unfolding. And that's a critical point to keep in mind. And now I speak as a Jew. We are eyewitnesses to this narrative. We've seen the worst. And I'm going back thousands of years. We've been in bondage, in slavery, killed, executed, persecuted, expelled. And we've also seen the best, but the best is yet to come. So in that context, I would like to say to you, and say to myself, that we see a bigger picture, to use a modern cinematic analogy, like a film. You have to wait till all the frames pass. You can't just judge it by one frame or one chapter in the book. Life is mobile. Everything is in flux, like a turning wheel. And there's so much more to come. Yes, surprises can also lead to negative ones. Our hope and prayer is that it should only be positive. But we see that's the trend. That is the trend. A second thing we need to realize is that there's so many unknowns here, especially in the factors at work. Ask yourself this question. What is driving the hatred of the mullahs, the ayatollahs of Iran? Why do they hate Jews and Israel so much, calling for its annihilation? You can't really explain it. They want to put pressure and say, let's make peace with the Palestinians, and so on. But what is this annihilation? It's like the irrational obsession of the Nazis with the Jews. There's only one way to explain it when you have to look at the bigger picture. You're not going to define it by immediate, momentary, short-term factors. It's all about understanding the bigger picture again. There are cosmic factors at work, psychological ones, emotional ones, and spiritual ones. And I've been speaking about this a lot, if you've been following my commentary, especially the biblical roots. So I don't want to go into in extreme detail, but I do want to touch upon that because it's very helpful to understand what we're dealing with, but most important, to understand where we're headed. So let's go to the biblical roots. There was a man called Abraham that lived around 3,800 years ago in this region, the Middle East. He actually was born in what is today southeastern Iraq, Mesopotamia. And he had a son called Ishmael, who would become the ancestor and the forefather of the Arab world. Part of that Arab world would become Muslim in the 6th century. He had also a son called Isaac, who would become the ancestor and forefather of the Jewish world. Isaac, in turn, had 2 children, Esau and Jacob, twin brothers. Esau would become the father and ancestor of Rome, the West, that would ultimately become Christian once Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity. And the second son, Jacob, son of Isaac as well, continued the Jewish ancestry and have the tribes. And hence we have the 3 major religions Judaism, Christianity, Islam. All children of Abraham, the father of all nations. And the battles began in Abraham's home. Ishmael and Isaac battled, and Esau and Jacob battled. It says that even in their mother's womb, they were already struggling because they represented two different ideologies, two different cosmic realities. Esau was a warrior, a hunter, an expert of maneuvering and manipulating the material world. Jacob was a scholar. It's called the pure one, the innocent one. And in truth, we need both. We all have a Jacob and Esau within us. That's the body and the soul. Both are divine. Both were created by God. They have different agendas. And the goal is to integrate them, to learn how they can both be harnessed and they complement each other. We're not looking for asceticism and escape from the material world, nor are we looking to be consumed by the material world. We're looking to find a way to balance. That's what Abraham taught. But it takes time. It takes maturity. And we see in history, frankly, if you think of, is it really possible to reconcile? Yes, let's look at the Christian world. Christianity, for many centuries, terrorized the world, whether it was through inquisitions or crusades or forced conversions. They were very radical. Jews, of course, suffered greatly at the hands, expelled from Spain, from England, from other countries. And yet, we look today, if not all, at least most of the Christian countries have become far more tamed. The United States actually has become a haven for freedom of religion, religious freedom for Jewish people, for people of all minorities, and it was founded by Christians, not by Jews and not by secularists, deists, but nevertheless, they're coming from the Christian tradition. So things have changed. So the trajectory, the words of the founding fathers, which again is taken from biblical sources, all people are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights. The appreciation that you don't have to destroy someone you disagree with. You don't have to kill the infidels. You have to learn a way to integrate, to find balance and harmony. And this goes back all the way to what Abraham taught. And that's the story of Sinai. Sinai was about integration. The nations of the world were offered those teachings by God, and they rejected it at the time. But they ultimately embraced it. Christianity in its way, Islam in its own way. So just as Christianity went through, lack of a better word, market correction and a reality check, there's no doubt that is what's going to happen in the Middle East. And it's happening right now. Sometimes you need force when people are irrational and we're calling for your destruction. But ultimately, the goal is a peaceful harmony between the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, and people of all walks of life, and all faiths or no faiths, and all cultures and races. So if you talk about surprises, we've seen surprises. We shouldn't be surprised if we see another surprise, and many more to come. And all this has been pre-predicted. You can see it in the Prescient prophecies, the book of Isaiah, the book of Daniel, and other books. And especially when you look at the commentaries, there's an unfolding, invisible narrative that's taking place. The only question is, are you going to be part of the narrative, part of the problem, or part of the solution? Because we play a role. We're not just observers. We play a role. So when you see the events in the world, it's one thing, it's very interesting, fascinating. For some, it's disturbing and threatening. For others, it's reassuring. But that's not enough. We have to ask ourselves and have our children ask, what is our role in this narrative? What is our role in what is unfolding? How can we ensure that we have that harmony within diversity? That, yes, preserve the integrity of your beliefs, but realize there's only one God, and that God created us all. And that's why Abraham called the father of all nations, father of all nations. So diversity is not a bad thing. It's when diversity turns into divisiveness. So looking at the recent events, to sum up again, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is the unknown. To be at peace with the unknown. Be at peace with the fact that there were surprises and will be new surprises. And number two, that we play a role, a tremendous role. So there's no one that can predict what will be in a week from now, and a month from now, and months from now. But one thing you can be sure of, what you're going to do about it. And it's time for us to become proactive, to look at the events, find that moral clarity, don't be confused, find mentors, friends, others that are sensible, people who can coexist, can have a conversation even with someone you disagree with, even if it's adamant, instead of this petty polarization and partisan politics. Almost like in sports, whether it's Red Sox fans or Yankee fans or Dodger fans, but instead to understand that we're all part of a tapestry. We're all part of a bigger picture. We're all part of a cosmic symphony. Each of us expected to play our music and complement each other while we're being complimented by them. That's the message. In my opinion, my humble opinion, Israel should be exporting that, should be its number one export. Not technology, not tourism, not finance, but rather the message of a divine calling to all of us. So this is a wake-up call for each of us and all of us, the wake-up call that are we going to rise to the occasion and ultimately usher in an age of permanent peace. Yes, it's called a messianic age. It's a new order, a new world order, one where we see a shift. And the truth is, from a Jewish perspective, it's not new because it was always meant to be. From day one, it was always meant to be that this world would become a garden, a home for the divine, an environment where we can live in a material world that on its own can conceal transcendence, on its own, the id, survival of the fittest, self-interest, selfish needs dominate, but we learn to discover that all that is really just the container for higher spiritual consciousness, for higher awareness, for transcendence. And that's when all the forces come together. And that is exactly what is predicted. But above all, we can do something about it. In your own life, deal with some of the conflicts you have within your own psyche, within your own family, within your community. Find something greater that unites us. Get beyond your petty and narrow, myopic vision of self-interest. Find ways to teach that to yourself, to your children, to your family. That has a ripple effect, a butterfly effect, a domino effect. And in turn, we are also looking at the events in the world and we can be inspired by them. Yes, there was a war, a 12-day war, and people were killed, it's true. But look at the result. The result of a threat has been eliminated. I know some are wondering whether it's actually eliminated, but defanged. We can take this to the next level of actually ushering in a world where Iran or Persia of old, used to be called Persia till the 20th century actually, will make peace with Israel, Saudi Arabia the same, Syria, Lebanon, the other Arab Muslim countries, and the same peace with all other countries in the world. I know in the last few weeks, people are in awe, even those that may not like Israel and the Jewish people, in awe. Israel really solely, single-handedly fighting the war with the United States support, no question, and tremendous gratitude to the arms, as well as, of course, the United States participation in eliminating, or at least severely damaging, the nuclear facilities and capabilities of Iran. But the world mostly was on the sidelines, even though Israel was fighting a war for the world. It wasn't just Israel, because terrorism is terrorism. And the killing of one innocent person is the killing of all innocent people. But now, let us all rally together, unite all nations of the world. I want to personally, of course, acknowledge my dear friend, President Javier Milei in Argentina, who has shown that courage. He was in Israel just before this war broke out. I was there with him. And as I've already shared, we took flights right out with the last flights that left Israel before the launch of Rising Lion, Operation Rising Lion. But he had the courage. He didn't wait. He's not standing on the sidelines. The courage to support Israel unequivocally. I wish that all world leaders would take his lead and learn it's a time for moral clarity, spiritual clarity, not a time for ambiguity and for what we call playing both sides or trying to be what they used to say. They say a guy is thought, I used to think I'm indecisive, now I'm not so sure. No more time for ambiguity. There are moral right and wrong. There is a moral clarity, at the same time an acceptance and respect for all individuals in their diversity. So, my friends, I say to you, we all play a role in this, every one of us, man, woman, and child, wherever you may be. Let us rise to the occasion. The next step is yours. This has been Simon Jacobson, meaningfullife.com. Please share this message if you found it meaningful. Love to hear your feedback, your comments, your suggestions, and thoughts. Please subscribe to our offerings, meaningfullife.com, to our YouTube channel. And again, let us all join together and create that cosmic symphony of the ultimate harmony within diversity. Thank you and be well.